Hi, today I thought I should swatch all of the neutral, sparkly, wet looking shades and palettes that I like. That is probably not all the shades that I have, but these are the ones that come to my mind when I think about that. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. Let's start. The first shade is this one from the Clio Mono Mood Pro Palette Mini. Yeah, I think the other one is called something else Mood. It's this shade right here. It is a very special shade because I don't find these shades to be common in these Korean brands, but I think you can see it's a very neutral champagne and it is super wet looking and also super sparkly. It has a little bit of a thicker consistency, but I really like it. It doesn't add much color. It's pretty much just like a wet. It pretty much gives the like gloss effect. Then we have Charlotte Tilbury. Oh, this is so dirty. Charlotte Tilbury Exaggereyes. What? Exaggereyes. This shade down here, it is more on the cool tone side. You're gonna see most of the shades here are either neutral or cool toned because that's what looks more realistically wet on my eyes. If I put something more warm toned, it looks more gold than wet. So I know that, for example, Natasha Denona Cava is a favorite for a lot of people, but that shade on me just looks quite gold. And it does look wet, but it adds a lot of color to it. And for these shadows here, I wanted something that doesn't really add much color. It's pretty much just like a shadow version of a eye gloss. So this shade down here, these shades tends to get hard pan, so it's like a little harder to get. But I think you can see this one is more cool toned than that one. It almost has a blueness to it. But it is so pretty. This is the palette that made me fall in love with Charlotte Tilbury's formula. I really like the pop formula. It has a little bit of a taupey base, but it's so beautiful. Very pretty. It looks quite cool toned compared to that other one, but both of these work on me. I think this one is a classic, the Natasha Denona Mini Retro, right? Yeah. This shade here, it has these tiny blue sparkles that make it look so dimensional. And I think you can see on my finger, it does look a little bit pink. But I think when you see swatched, it kind of has that same type of base as the Charlotte Tilbury one. A little bit more on the pink side. But on my skin tone, it looks, again, it just looks wet. It doesn't add much color to it. It has these tiny blue sparkles that I think really help with the wet effect. Then we have this Lorac Mini Pro palette in Mystic Oak. I really like the Lorac palettes, these little 6 pans and a 15 pan. I don't like the bigger one. I feel that the shimmers in that one aren't the same formula, but I do like the tiny ones and the 16 pan ones. And it's this shade here. It has a little bit of a flaky texture like the same one from Clio. This one is definitely more, I would say, cool toned. It has a bit of that white sparkle. But again, on my skin tone, I'm just gonna keep repeating myself. It just adds that effect. Really pretty. This one is newer to my collection. A friend of mine gave it to me. It's the Nearly Natural from Glam Cosmetics. And it's this shade here called Unveiled. This one is not as sparkly as the other ones, but it has a magicness to it. I think you can see it's more smooth, and it definitely has that pink base. But on the eyes, if I put like a glitter glue down, it really just, I think you can see it on my finger here. It just looks so glossy. I don't think it's gonna look super glossy on my arm because I feel like it needs something to hold on to. but yeah, another one of my favorites. These are looking quite pink together. Oh, they fall. Yeah. This is an old one, but I still love it. It's this shade right here. Well, this is the Desi and Katie, right? Yeah, Desi and Katie Friendcation palette. This has been discontinued for years, but I don't care. I still love it. It is this shade down here. This was probably one of the first wet looking shades that I tried. Oh yeah, my arm is stained there, so please ignore it. When I put it compared to all these other ones, this one looks quite warm. It has a bit of like a red and gold and orange sparkle to it, but this one also works on me like a simple wet look, more neutral eyeshadow, but it does look warmer compared to the other ones. I will give you a closer look later. Then we have the Natasha Denona Glam Face palette. This is the light one. Both of these shades are very wet looking, but this is the one that looks more like an eye gloss on me. It's so pretty. These all look the same now on my arm. Again, this one has a little bit of a warmer base, but the sparkle itself, it's a very light, slightly warmish peachy base with the silver sparkles. I'm trying to see if there's any other. There's a little bit of a, no, I think it's just silver sparkles. Another beautiful one. This one's a big one, but this shade is so pretty that I had to include it. This shade down here called Cava. This one, when you really spread it out, it really looks super wet. It has a little bit of gold, a little bit of silver. It has a bit of a darker base compared to some of these other ones, but it works on me. So beautiful. Beauty Bay, when they get their shimmers right, it's usually amazing. I don't love all their shimmers, but the ones that are sparkly are super pretty. There's a little bit of gold in there too. I feel like a lot of these, when I look closely, have a little bit of gold just to add a bit more dimension and maybe make the sparkle look a little less white or silver. This is the Nabla Cutie palette. That is the number 2 coral. This one is an old favorite of mine. I think you can see here that I have a pretty bad hard pan on this shade called Mandarin, but I love it. This is also one of the first wet looking shades that I tried. It does have a bit of a pinky peach base, but it really looks translucent on the eyes. So beautiful. This one looks similar to the one in the Glaminatrix palette, maybe a little bit more sparkly. Again, it has that pinkish base with the silver sparkle and a little bit of gold. I don't know if it's mixing with something, but there's this tiny bit of gold sparkles that kind of look gold when the light isn't hitting it directly, like on this side. This is the Copacetic Companion palette. I love this palette. Love it. This shade here is one of those. It is a flaky shadow, so you do have to be a little bit careful. You don't need to over apply it. But again, it has that same story. It's kind of a peachy, pinky base. Oh, I think I got too much now. But you can see how shiny, like it's shinier than all the other ones. You do have to really spread it out, I find, to get the best result, but it's so beautiful. Kind of reminds me of, you know, Space Cowboy, Ritz, Colourpop Ritz, those shadows. We're almost done. There's 4 more left. This is the shade Zoe. So pretty. This is another kind of old palette, but I love that shade. This is the Odin's Eye Freja palette. This shade down here, it's a beautiful, sparkly, wet-looking taupe. Then again, on my skin, just kind of looks wet. Doesn't really add color to my lids. I'm hoping I can fit all of them in my arm because I don't want to have to wash it and do a second round. Again, I'm repeating myself. It has kind of a pinky, peachy base with silver sparkle. I guess I know now that's what I like. I never really thought about it. I just put it on my eyes and think, oh my god, this is amazing. This one looks quite taupe on the pan. It doesn't look so pink on the pan. But when I put it on my arm, I can kind of see this peachy pink. It's more peachy than pink. Base. Sheer base. Another old one. Let's clean my hands. The Colourpop Sweet Talk palette. This one has 2 pressed glitters I don't love, but oh my god, this shade here. This one I would say is the pinkest of them all. It does have these pink sparkles. And it does pull pink on my eyes. I think you can see it does look more pink on my eyes, but I don't know. It doesn't add too much color, and I feel that it still fits the category. But I will pretty much use this palette just for this shade. It's so beautiful. This is looking like a bruise now, the stain. Okay, this is Pat McGrath. I have 2 Pat McGraths. I don't know what this one is. Let's see. Okay, this is Midnight Sun. This shade here. This was my first Pat McGrath palette, and the one that made me fall in love with her sparkly formula. This shade down here is just so beautiful. I will pretty much just use this palette for that shade. I don't use much of the other shades. The mattes are a little too dark for me. But yeah, that is definitely my favorite shade. This one has a mix of silver and gold sparkles that end up making it look quite neutral. Although it does pull more silver than gold. And then the last one is very similar. It's another Pat McGrath. This is the Vine Rose 1. And it's this shade down here. Same spot. They look very similar. Maybe this one looks a little more cool toned. I don't know. I cannot tell the difference between them. Maybe this one is a little bit brighter. But yeah, very, very similar. Yeah, this one looks a little bit brighter. Like the silver here is... Okay, my camera died, but what I was saying basically is that I cannot tell a difference between this shade from the Vine Rose 1 and the shade that I swatched from Midnight Sun. They look very, very, very similar. Under these lights, I can see that the Vine Rose looks a teeny bit brighter, but the other shade, but yeah, it's very subtle. I don't know. I think it's pretty much the same shade. I'm gonna give you a closer look, and that's it.